Who do we expect to be the leaders and the change makers in this world? The fact is, a lot of the people that end up becoming leaders and change makers are people that we did not expect. We often discount ourselves from leading because we don't look like a leader according to the standards that the world around us has set. And yet, becoming a leader is far less about how you look and so much more about what you're willing to step up for. I'm Ivan Mawarire. In this episode, I'm going to go over 3 ways in which I have learned to awaken the leader within. Superheroes rarely wake up in the morning believing they're superheroes.
The government can no longer push around citizens.
In fact, they start out as ordinary people going about their everyday lives.
The government intimidates us, they arrest us, and we're saying we're done with that.
And that's how I started, just as an ordinary parent going about his own business. The challenge that most of us face is what we believe about ourselves. And that leads us to takeaway number 1. Challenge your limiting beliefs. First, you need to know that this topic is very close to my heart. When I started the movement in Zimbabwe, April of 2016.
This beautiful flag. They tell me that the green is for the vegetation and for the crops. I don't see any crops in my country.
I knew I did not look the part. In fact, if you were to pick a person that would, in 3 months' time, bring the entire country of Zimbabwe to a standstill in protest to a brutal dictator, you wouldn't have picked me. In fact, I wouldn't have picked me.
Pastor Ivan is a very peace-loving man.
And we will all happily go to prison with Pastor Mawarire. Yes, because all we're saying is we don't want corrupt leadership.
On all accounts, I did not look the part, and I was incapable of this kind of work. I did not have the kind of political experience required. I was not in civic society. I was pastoring a very small church. I was a struggling father, trying to feed his children. Unknown, no platform. And yet, when I recorded the very first video that started the citizens movement,
And sometimes when I look at the flag, it's not a reminder of my pride and inspiration. It feels as if I just want to belong to another country. This flag.
I looked at that person in the video and watched myself speak with bravery and watched myself begin to say things that I didn't normally say. And I was intrigued by the person I saw. That person was different from the one who was watching, who did not believe that they had the impetus or the necessary calling to be able to lead a citizens movement. It is when I began to ignore these limiting beliefs about myself that I began to step into the role of being a leader. The second takeaway is validation. Don't look for validation, come with it. Don't look for approval, come approved. The challenge most of us face is not believing enough that we belong in the places and spaces that we desire to be in. We second guess ourselves. Take this, for example. When you go out, before you go out, you look in the mirror. I bet almost everybody takes a look in the mirror. And you try and be the person that everyone else is gonna like when they see. And so we go out after that, and we try our best to be the person we saw in the mirror before we left home. And if people don't acquiesce to that person, if they don't approve of that person, it deflates us. It takes away our confidence to be in this space. This time, look in the mirror and be convinced that it doesn't matter what they shall see, as long as that person in the mirror has your permission, has your approval. When you then go out, whoever you meet, whatever they say, whether it is approving or disapproving, it doesn't matter, because you have already given yourself the approval. And that leads us to takeaway number 3. Focus on the now. Sometimes we fail to be the leader that we need to be because we're consumed with wanting to know what the next step is instead of knowing what the now step is. I know what you might be thinking, that you have to have a full strategy. You have to know all the steps before you get started, and there's a place for that. But from my own story, knowing what to do now always gave birth to what we needed to do next. When we were building the movement in Zimbabwe, people would ask me everywhere I went, where I met people, they would be like, Ivan, we see the movement is growing. What's next? I didn't always know what was next. And I trained myself then after that to be happy and comfortable with knowing what we were doing now. I gave myself a challenge to make 25 videos in 25 days for the citizens movement. Every day I would release a video. I didn't know what would happen next after that, but I didn't let that stop me from doing what I knew now. What I'm saying is, you don't always know the next step, but I'm betting that you might know the now step. And be okay. Be bold enough to take the now step, because it is the now step that gives birth to the next step. Because it is taking the now that releases the idea, opens the door, and brings in the networks, brings in the resources for the next step. And sometimes you only know it as you are getting to the end of the now step. Sometimes you even get to the end of the now step without knowing the next step. But take the now step even when you don't know the next step. So how will you awaken the leader within?